Hey everybody, welcome to the morning market briefing. It is Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. Hope you're doing well out there. As a reminder, check out the jacobsladdergroup.org to learn more about an organization that we are highlighting for the rest of the month of March and having an event with on April 1st, 12:30, lunch at the office. And then you will get the opportunity to hear more from the founder of that great organization about her path, challenges of starting such a impressive nonprofit, and updates on all the work that they're doing. So if you have not RSVP'd, check it out. If you're interested in just learning more, go to the website, thejacobsladdergroup.org. You can even donate there. I'm trying to help raise some funds for these fine people. Great interview on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do so. And go ahead and like all the videos and get alerts and watch us live, all that good stuff. Tom, Ben, how we doing?
I will say, I think someone inadvertently got the Hicks hug by RSVPing shortly after the call. I don't know if it came from the call. There was no mention of the hug in the email, but unfortunately for Hicks,
that's super exciting.
He's about to have to hug somebody.
Hicks looks giddy over there, like a little schoolboy on field day right now. That's how I would describe Hicks.
Man, best day of the year.
Yeah,
that's how you crown the fastest kid in class, which is very important.
Definitely my favorite quote ever from my 7-year-old son was, it was around Christmas time, and he said, "Why do they say this is the most wonderful time of the year when field day is at the end of school?"
It's true.
So makes you think. Ben, we about to have a Taco Tuesday?
I think we started to get there yesterday. I think that there was some CBS reporting initially that came out that said Trump was looking to wind down the operation sooner rather than later. And then there was an announcement at 5:30 where he further elaborated on this. I think that, some of the initial headlines and initial reaction was about fair. Oil is just so much governed by speculation right now on the front month contract on the spot market that that's moving around a lot. But the market itself, I remember Liberation Day when tariffs on, tariffs off. Tariffs on was down 4%. Tariffs off was up 8%. This was a down 1.5%, up almost 1% yesterday. So you saw some relief, but also, what you've been saying over the last week, Andrew, is that there really hasn't been much of a stock market impact yet. Most of the impact has primarily been on spot oil markets, as well as interest rates to a lesser extent. But interest rates also came back. I think they were over 421 at one point early in the morning yesterday, and they ended up, I think they're around 410 right now. So they've come back a bit, which should bolster people a little bit more concerned about mortgages. We got a CPI number tomorrow. So that's kind of the underlying flavor that's going on in markets. We can talk a little bit more about the nuances of what Trump said and kind of what's the next steps there. But I think that's the flavor of what's in markets today. Obviously, things can change.
You see that Tim Rose is already preemptively fighting that CPI is going to be low tomorrow?
Yeah, he said if CPI is going to be low tomorrow, but they're not going to care about that because just wait till April.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, well, April, yes, we see the housing number that comes back that we skipped it in October, which will hit by like 7 basis points or 9 basis points. But we also are lapping on a year-over-year basis tariffs from Liberation Day. So what's that impact on the base effect? So he's definitely picking and choosing based on what he wants. And I think he's going to conveniently stop talking about oil prices today.
He's not tweeted anything since then. He just said, man, everybody thinks inflation is going to be cold tomorrow, but it's old data and April's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's interesting to see him now point out that the data is old. On the war front, Trump, he seems to be kind of recalibrating back to the 4 to 5 week schedule, Ben, saying that we're well ahead of that schedule where they were. But notably, there's been kind of two concurrent timelines running. One that was talking about, well, we're not to the point where we would want boots on the ground, but also alluding to a much longer period of combat, and then one saying, well, we're ahead of the 4 to 5 week schedule, and saying that the primary objectives are pretty well complete, and then kind of referencing back to the stock market, which He's for the boys.
Yes.
If they stop firing, but kind of are more covert about what they're doing, does that constitute an end to the I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, what the quote in our market memo from Friday speaks exactly to what is going on right now, and that is when he was asked about what do you do in Iraq in 2007 by Wolf Blitzer. Trump said, and Wolf said, "How do you get out?" And Trump said, "How do you get out? You get out. You just declare victory and you leave." And that's kind of what I think he'll do here. I think that one thing that he has staked his claim on is that he's not a fan of the new Khamenei of the son.
Yep.
Junior.
And so I think that will probably be dealt with one way or the other.
I mean, the irony is,
but before something happens. But I think subsequent to that, I think that we're okay.
I also think, I mean, obviously this is a different scale of operation from what happened in Venezuela. It's different than what happened with Operation Midnight Hammer back in June of last year. But specifically going back to June, the immediate reaction from not just like people online, but like the media, the immediate reaction was, wow, this is really impressive. We need to learn more. And that was like on a Saturday night. And then by Sunday, it was like, well, we'll have to see what the follow-up is. And are there going to be boots on the ground? And then at some point, it just kind of faded. No one talked about it. I don't know that we're that far removed from if we were to just essentially stop. I don't know that we need to have a declaration that we've stopped, so to speak. I mean, even like into the early weeks after, or the early days after Midnight Hammer, it was like, well, let's see what their retaliatory strikes look like. Let's see how this unfolds. And it was just like nothing.
If ships start going through the Strait of Hormuz, I think that.
Have you seen the reporting where like they actually are? They're just turning off all their beacons.
I've seen that as well.
I haven't seen that.
I don't know what's true. What's
Zero
not.
Hedge was posting a bunch about that, but
I mean,
it's hard to tell at that point. It's hard to tell what's going on.
I mean, that's basically how HW won the first Iraq war. Is he got in there, he blew everything up, and then they just pieced out.
Yeah.
And call it 15 years later, we had to go back. Some people would really argue over the word "had to," but that's the move. You don't want to get stuck in these quagmires, and I think that, I mean, you almost have to treat it like cutting the grass. It's like every year and a half, you just got to smack Iran, and then they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. We're not going to be doing," I mean, it's like,
and you should cut your grass more often.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like if it starts to get long, you got to go out there and cut it, and. They didn't do a great job. Maybe it rained too much after Midnight Hammer or whatever it's called. And they're like, oh, actually, we got to cut the grass again. It rained too much. And that's this. And then, you got 2 weeks and maybe you have to come back.
The other thing that I would note on Trump is that he's talking about the stock market again, which is a good thing. There are articles in the Wall Street Journal saying advisors are saying Trump needs to find an exit ramp. I really have the suspicion. So we know how Jay Powell has the inside scoop with Nick Timmeros, and I think Besant has a similar favored editor. I don't know who it is at the Wall Street Journal.
Man, that'd be a cool gig.
But I think Besant has a line to the Wall Street Journal and gets articles written that he wants. I don't think you have a headline in the Wall Street Journal saying White House advisors advising Trump to kind of find an exit ramp without at least Besant's blessing on that. And I think that, I mean, from the start, Trump has even admitted that Besant was not a fan of this.
Yeah.
And
you think he meets him at the gas station, they rip a cig and have a little Dr. Pepper in the morning?
He's like, here's the scoop. He hands him an empty Dr. Pepper bottle with a message in it.
Yeah. Can anyone come up with a cool nickname for an undercover journalist that might leak information? I'll just leave it at that. You guys can fill in the blanks.
The oil situation, I mean, you alluded to it, Ben, but I mean, it's so much being driven by speculation now, almost speculation towards a crash in oil, which is fun to see the reversal.
Ironic.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the
ironic.
So when you look at oil and how it's constructed, you can either buy spot oil, you can buy oil based on various delivery dates, and that's how a lot of actual professionals will think about oil. So they'll look at oil for March delivery, April delivery, June delivery, 2029 delivery. And there's a price that is attached to each of those delivery dates. And what you've seen is that the early delivery dates are wild because people legitimately don't know how they're going to get the oil and if they're going to be able to get it out of the Gulf. But beyond that, it's not really crazy at all. So this is really more of a logistical. This is a pure play supply disruption logistical issue. And if we can figure out a way to manage through that, then I think oil's going to go straight back down. I do think that there's a lot of speculation. So speculators can also participate in these markets. So you have real money buyers and sellers, and then you have speculators. And so what speculators will do is when they see the price really moving on the front, they're going to try to squeeze you. So like if you're Delta or an air, just call it Delta because everyone knows them. But you're trying to buy effectively oil, probably a refined product, but a derivative of oil. So let's just say it's oil. Oil will go up. Your delta, you're hedging the price of oil. Well, you got to re-hedge that and increase. And you got to buy more oil, and the speculators know you have to buy more oil at higher and higher prices. So they're going to push that price up. They're going to buy more because they know that Delta's right behind them. They're just going to be forced to buy. That flips when all of a sudden oil's coming out of the Gulf, and then all of a sudden the speculators are off sides because now Delta is not desperate for oil anymore. No one's behind the speculators, and now the speculators are driving it the other way, because they just got to unwind their positions before it crashes. So we went up over the last 30 days. We're still up 35%, but we're actually down 28% from yesterday's high.
That's crazy. Yesterday was absolutely insane. But I mean, that's the thing is, if you think back to like middle of 2008 when there were gas lines, that was the narrative was like speculators knew they could just keep pulling and pulling and pulling on that rope. And it was just, I mean, we got well over $100 per barrel. ExxonMobil was the largest company in the world, mostly because everything else had sold off 40, 50%. But that was the game, and there was no real way to stop them. I mean, I feel like people are more sophisticated now in terms of, futures markets and seeing where there's a squeeze going on like that. But, that was the original meme stock, really. You could do, no wrong just buying oil, if anything, during that time, because the speculators were in there so aggressively.
And the U.S. does produce a decent amount of oil now, too.
Yeah, but that's a big difference, yeah. It's just an interesting thing to look back on where that was, similar situation, right? We had, a war going on. We needed oil. The war was for oil. A lot of people were saying at the time, though now we don't need it as much as we used to. And that was just the biggest speculation trade of that decade, probably.
There's also an unbelievable episode of television based on this very plot line. It originally aired September 18th, 2008, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The gang solves the gas crisis. If you like things that I like and you laugh at things that I would laugh at, and you have not watched that episode, it's from season 4, episode 2 of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
They must be on season, 24 now?
I mean, it's seemingly...
That was early Always Sunny.
But just an unbelievable episode of television. Maybe we'll watch that during lunch if it, can be found.
Talk about what was happening while the young boys were having their
when
diapers changed.
When they were born. We got small business optimism, Ben. How do you interpret this data? We alluded to it yesterday, but the fact that, obviously things have changed, but it seems like there's some optimism.
Yeah, I think look through a lot of the noise. I mean, it'll say, well, it disappointed, but it was still good. But uncertainty fell. I would imagine that if they did the survey today, uncertainty would be higher. So take those with a grain of salt. I think a few main observations for me. Number one problem for a lot of these small businesses is taxes, and continues to be taxes. Notably, not inflation. Inflation is actually number 3 on the list, behind labor. And then insurance is a close 4th. So when you combine that with price plans that are pretty stable, and we have a chart on this as well, and you get to a reality that, hey, I don't think prices are really that much of a systemic issue here, and I actually think that absent the oil things, I think that everything that we've talked about in inflation coming down is still actionable. The second thing I would say is just something to keep an eye on is that among small businesses, CapEx plans continue to be softer than really any time over the last 5 years, which is notable given the expectation from many in the investment community, and I think we have a chart on this too, and then we're sharing, that CapEx is just going to rip. But if you look at the expected plans on CapEx, that continues to be really low. In fact, as low as it was during the 2008 financial crisis. So small businesses are not willing to build more right now. Now, big companies might be building AI data centers, but for now, I continue to think that that's pretty much where the CapEx is. The third thing is that the jobs market is tough, and this is probably one of the more durable trends that we're seeing, is that planned hirings and job openings are quite low, and then that they've been trending down since really the top in early 2022, since the Fed started raising rates. And that is something that we're going to continue to take a look at, because this is happening even as sales and earnings are accelerating. I think that if you look at the sales chart, you can see that things have really improved, and expected sales really improved at the end of last year, at the end of 2024, excuse me. But the actual sales really improved at the end of 2025. But it's really when you get to earnings and profitability where you see the dramatic improvement in small business finances. Things had been really bleak for about 4 or 5 years for small businesses, but that reversed pretty suddenly about 18 months ago. And that's something to keep in mind. So when I marry that with what's going on in the jobs market, I think that jobs market, we all know, is a lagging indicator. You fire people, like kind of as a last resort, and you hire people once you've kind of reached that critical turning point where it's like, we actually need to hire people. Things are better than expected, and we think that things are going to continue. So I think that kind of explains where we are in the employment. I think AI is probably less of an issue on the small business side, at least right now. But I do think that employment will probably turn at some point, provided that these sales and earnings expectations continue. So those are my thoughts there. I think that overall, from an economic perspective, things are pretty good. From a jobs perspective, things are not so good. Hoping for a turn, but things are not so good right now. And from pricing perspective, very stable. And I think it's consistent with 2% inflation, or maybe even a little bit less given the housing market.
We did get some reporting from Taiwan Semi, a little bit of a slower number rolling forward.
Yeah, I think it was the Chinese New Year issue. So January was a little bit higher, February was a little bit less. The market certainly doesn't seem to care at this point. I saw the headline, it went from like 35% to 22% on a month-over-month basis, and I thought this is not going to be good. But it does seem to be related to the Chinese New Year. So we'll have to continue to see what happens with Taiwan Semi. I don't think there's upside, though, there relative to expectations significantly, which does give me a little bit more pause on things like NVIDIA.
Good stuff. Tom, anything else you're keeping an eye on?
I mean, I've been interested to see how the market reacts to CPI tomorrow. I mean, we've already kind of walked all the way back to where we were on the bond market, about a 4.12, 4.13 on the 10-year. So just strap in. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity based on this volatility. So if you see a lot of trades going off, it's us trying to kind of get you right-sized. And it's a weird year because bonds are outperforming, and so suddenly we're a little overweight on fixed income in many accounts, and so trying to figure out the best spot to be buying and selling next couple of days. And the 15th is a massive maturity day, so got to get prepped for that as well.
Buckle up. All right, we will be back tomorrow. Hope you all have a great day. Talk to you soon.